Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Since I maxed out your credit cards to buy my dream house, Sarah's voice was light and cheerful, as if she had just told me she booked a vacation. Not that she had obliterated my financial stability in a single reckless decision. Mom and Dad said you'd be fine with it. You're the responsible one after all. It's only fair I get something nice for myself this time. Standing in my cramped studio apartment, I watched my phone screen flood with credit alert notifications, each one a nail in the coffin of my patience. The dim glow of my phone screen illuminated the credit alert notifications stacking up one after the other. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Each number hit harder than the last, like a blade sinking deeper into my spine with every passing second. She was laughing. She was laughing while she ruined me. My name is Mira Langley, and at 27, I just experienced the most ruthless betrayal of my life. But while Sarah is probably reveling in her stolen luxury, convinced I'll quietly accept the wreckage she's left behind, I'm not panicking. She thinks I'll clean up her mess just like I always have. She thinks I'll let this slide because family forgives because I'm the responsible one. But she's wrong. I'm not the same person she and my parents have manipulated for years. I'm not their financial safety net. And I'm certainly not about to let them walk away unscathed. Sarah stole from me. She built her dream on my ruin. Now I'm here to take everything back and make sure she feels every second of her downfall. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't even reply. Instead, I listened. I let Sarah talk. Let her dig her own grave with every entitled, self-satisfied word that left her mouth. So perfect, Mira. You should see the walk-in closet and the pool. Oh my God, you'd love it. I could hear the smile in her voice, the sickening, giddy excitement that made my stomach turn. I mean, let's be honest, you weren't going to do anything with that credit anyway. You live in that tiny apartment, always working, saving. What's the point of all that money if you're not even going to use it? My jaw clenched. The point was that I had been building my future brick by brick, dollar by dollar. The point was that I had spent the last decade being careful, making sure I would never end up trapped like our parents, drowning in debt, suffocating under bad decisions. The point was that it was mine, and she had taken it like it was nothing. Oh, no worry. I'll pay it back eventually, Sarah continued, her voice breezy and unbothered. Besides, you make more than me. It's not like you're struggling or anything. Not yet. But she had made damn sure I would be. I glanced back at my phone, scrolling through the damage. $65,000 in fraudulent charges, a second mortgage in my name, a personal loan I never applied for. And the worst part? Sarah wasn't smart enough to pull this off alone. My stomach curled with a new sharp kind of dread, because if she had gotten away with this, that meant someone helped her. I forced my voice to stay steady. How did you even get approved for this, Sarah? She laughed like it was some silly little secret. Lucas figured it out. He knows all these loopholes in the system. You wouldn't believe it. He said as long as the paperwork looks good. Banks barely check Lucas. That slimy son of a bitch. Sarah had always been careless. She had always been reckless. But Lucas, he was calculated. I had never liked him. He was the kind of guy who talked big but never delivered. Always flashing wealth that didn't belong to him. Spinning fantasy after fantasy about the empire he was going to build. And now I knew exactly how he planned to fund that empire, with my goddamn money. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, forcing the rage to settle into something more productive. I wasn't going to explode. I was going to dismantle them, piece by piece. I hung up without another word. The silence was deafening. Sarah thought she had won. She thought she had beaten me on my parents. They had known. Of course they had. They had always coddled her, enabled her, sacrificed everything to keep her happy at any cost. Even if that cost was me. Because that's what I had always been, wasn't it? The scapegoat, the backup plan. The one who never needed anything. So it was always okay to take from me. And now they thought I would do what I had always done. That I would clean up the mess. That I would fix everything. That I would forgive. But they didn't realize I wasn't their safety net anymore. I poured myself a drink not because I needed it, but because I wanted to savor this moment. The moment before everything changed. The moment before I tore apart their perfect little illusion and showed them what it felt like to be powerless. Sarah had no idea what she had just done. She thought she had taken my money. She thought she had stolen my future. But all she had really done was give me the perfect excuse to ruin hers. And as I took the first slow sip, feeling the warmth settle in my chest, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to hold back. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of anger. Anger would have been easy. No, what kept me awake was clarity, the kind of sharp, razor-edged realization that comes when you finally see people for what they are, stripped of every illusion. Sarah wasn't just reckless. She wasn't just selfish. She was a parasite. And my parents, they were her enablers. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind piecing together the web of lies, manipulation, and entitlement that had led to this moment. They had always taken from me, always expected me to fix things, to be the responsible one. While Sarah was free to burn through life like a spoiled child with an unlimited credit card. This time they had made a fatal mistake because they didn't just take money from me. They took my future, and I was going to take everything from them in return. The first thing I did was secure my accounts. Every single bank account, credit line, investment portfolio, and digital wallet all locked down with new passwords, two-factor authentication, and fraud alerts. If they thought they could squeeze more out of me, they were dead wrong. Then I pulled my full credit report. I had expected damage. I had expected maxed out cards and fraudulent charges. But this was a goddamn crime scene. $65,000 in maxed out credit cards, a fraudulent second mortgage, $180,000 tied to my name, a personal loan I never applied for. Several store credit accounts opened under my name. My breath came slow and steady, controlled. This wasn't panic. This was a puzzle to solve. And I was damn good at puzzles. I needed proof not just of the fraud, that was easy, but of who orchestrated it. Sarah had the brainpower of a half-eaten salad, so there was no way she pulled this off alone. She didn't understand loans, mortgage approvals, or credit leverage. Someone guided her through this, and I had a very strong suspicion about who. So I started digging every single paper trail, signature, log, and notarized document. I pulled it all, and the deeper I went, the more the truth started to take shape. And then I found it buried in the mortgage paperwork. A co-signer's name. Not Sarah's, not Lucas's. My father's. A slow, bitter smile spread across my lips. There it is. This wasn't just Sarah stealing from me. This was a family job. I needed a shock. Someone ruthless. Someone who didn't give a damn about family loyalty or second chances. Someone who would dismantle them legally before they even realized they were bleeding out. Evelyn Holt was that shark. We met at a high-rise downtown. The kind of place where people don't ask how you made your money, just how much of it you have. She was waiting for me at a sleek glass table, black coffee in front of her, dressed in crisp corporate armor. I dropped the stack of documents onto the table between us. She flipped through them. Her expression was impassive, but her eyes gleamed. "This is good," she murmured, scanning through the evidence. "This is really good." I crossed my arms, good enough to bury them. She looked up at me, then smiling like a wolf who had just caught the scent of blood. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her voice silky and dangerous. "This isn't just enough to bury them. This is enough to burn them alive." I could have gone straight for the throat, filed charges, sent them into financial ruin overnight, but that would have been too easy. I didn't just want them to lose. I wanted them to watch it happen, moment by moment, unable to stop it. So I started small. Sarah still thought I was clueless. Still thought I was playing the role of the naive, forgiving sister. So I let her believe it. I texted her a simple message. "Hey, can we talk?" Her reply came instantly. "Sarah, I knew you'd come around. Letes do brunch. I'll pick the place. Hope you don't mind paying. Things are a little tight right now." I stared at the message, my grip on the phone tightening. Of course, things are tight. You bled me dry, but I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't about anger. This was about control. And I was about to take every last shred of it away from her. I played along. I went to brunch. I smiled. I listened as Sarah gloated about her new house, the perfect life she had built with my stolen future. I even let her show me around. The house was stunning. Huge, airy, completely undeserved. She led me through the grand foyer, the marble countertops, the infinity pool in the backyard. "This is what I've always dreamed of," she sighed, twirling around in the living room. "I just knew I deserved this." I tilted my head, watching her. "You deserve nothing. But instead I smiled. "You really pulled it off, Sarah," I said, my voice dripping with admiration. "How did you even get the mortgage approved?" She lit up. "Oh, it was easy. Lucas helped me figure out some workarounds. Honestly, banks barely check. As long as you have a solid application. And Dad helped with some of the paperwork, so it was all smooth sailing there. It was everything I needed." I let my expression shift just slightly, just enough for her to catch it. A flicker of something. Something calculated. She hesitated at the mirror. I smiled wider. "Oh, nothing," I said, taking a slow sip of my drink. "I was just thinking. This house is a real shame." She blinked. "What?" I set my glass down, carefully leaning in. I murmured. "It would be a shame if you lost it." She laughed nervously, but I could already see it. The first flicker of doubt, the first shadow of fear creeping in. Good. She should be afraid because she had no idea what was coming next. And by the time she realized, it would already be too late. Sarah thought she had one. She strutted through life like she was untouchable. Her smile dazzling, her laughter careless in her mind. She had outsmarted me, taken what she wanted, and moved on. She had my money, my credit, my future. And worst of all, she thought I wouldn't do a damn thing about it. That's the thing about people like Sarah. They never believe consequences apply to them. They think they can lie, steal, manipulate, and still come out on top. They think they're invincible. And nothing is more satisfying than watching that illusion crack. The invitation arrived in the most insulting way possible. A group text. "Sarah. Hey fam, housewarming party this weekend. Drinks. Food. Fun. Celebrating my new home. Can't wait to show everyone." I stared at the message, bile rising in my throat. Her new home. She said it so casually, like she had earned it. Like she had worked for it. Like it hadn't been bought with my blood, my future, my goddamn name. I didn't reply. I didn't need to because I was already one step ahead. The night of the party, I arrived early. Sarah greeted me with an over-the-top hug. All faux sweetness and fake sisterly warmth. "Mira. I'm so glad you made it," she chirped, stepping back to admire my dress. "You look amazing." I forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. "So do you," I said smoothly. "Expensive taste. Must be nice." She beamed, missing the sharpness in my tone. "Oh, it is. This place is a dream, Mira. I finally have everything I ever wanted." I glanced around the marble countertops, the high ceilings, the luxury furniture that probably costs more than my entire apartment. "And how's the mortgage?" I asked, tilting my head. "Must be a hefty price tag." Her smile faltered for half a second before she recovered. "Oh, just some paperwork. Banks love me. They basically threw money at me." A hollow plastic laugh. A desperate attempt to maintain control. She was lying, and I let her. Because by the time this night was over, the truth would be her downfall. Sarah had handpicked her guests. Socialites, influencers, people who would gush over her home and inflate her already massive ego. She floated through the party, drinking champagne, tossing compliments, basking in admiration. She wanted witnesses. She wanted people to see her success. And I wanted them there. When it all crumbled, my parents arrived, dressed to impress, radiating fake parental pride. "Mira, isn't this place stunning?" My mother gushed, swirling a glass of wine. "Your sister really outdid herself." "She certainly did," I murmured, watching Sarah pose for a photo in front of the fireplace. A fireplace she never should have been able to afford. "You should be happy for her," my father added. "Family supports each other." A slow, cold smile crept onto my lips. "Oh, don't worry," I said. "I support her completely." More than they knew. I let Sarah have her moment. I let her toast to her new life. Let her twirl around the living room. Let her drink in the admiration like it was the very air she breathed. And then I pulled out my phone. I pressed play, and her voice, her own words, her own betrayal rang out across the room. "Lucas figured it out. He knows all these loopholes in the system. You wouldn't believe it. He said, as long as the paperwork looks good, banks barely check." The party fell silent. Sarah froze. The blood drained from her face as she spun to face me, her glass slipping from her fingers and shattering against the floor. I had her. The guests looked around, confused, whispers starting to ripple through the crowd. "What is this?" Sarah demanded, voice shaking. I lifted my phone, playing the next part of the recording. And Dad helped with some of the paperwork, so it was all smooth sailing. All eyes snapped to our father. His jaw tightened. His face darkened, and Sarah, she was drowning in panic. The front door swung open. A bank representative walked in, followed by 2 men in suits. Foreclosure agents. Sarah's breath hitched. "Miss Langley," the rep called, holding up a folder. "We need to discuss your mortgage agreement. There have been some inconsistencies." Gasps, whispers. Sarah turned to me, wild-eyed, shaking, desperate. "You," she started. I echoed, tilting my head. "I didn't say. It looks like the bank just figured things out on their own." She looked to my father for help. He didn't move because he knew he was next. The bank rep continued speaking, listing violation after violation in the mortgage contract. The guests started backing away, not wanting to be associated with a scandal waiting to explode. Sarah stood there, shaking, helpless, humiliated. I leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. "You stole my future." Her breath hitched. "Now you can watch yours burn." Her lips parted. Her eyes shone with unshared tears. But I didn't care. I stepped back, turned away, and walked toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I heard it. A choked sob, a broken whisper. "Mirror, please." I paused, smiled, and walked out without looking back. I stepped out of Sarah's house, feeling the cool night air against my skin. Behind me, the sound of whispers, gasps, and chaos filled the once lively party. Sarah was ruined, but I wasn't done. Not yet. Because the thing about revenge is that it's not just about watching them fall. It's about making sure they stay down. Sarah had spent her whole life avoiding consequences. Every mistake she made, every mess she created, someone was always there to clean it up. Not this time. The bank had officially frozen her mortgage account, putting her house under foreclosure review. She was one step away from being evicted, and with her credit destroyed from the fraud, there wasn't a bank in the country that would lend her so much as a dime. I let her sit with that reality for a few days, let her feel the walls closing in. Then I sent her a text. Meet me at the Ivy Cafe. Noon tomorrow. Don't be late." Her reply came 6 hours later, which told me everything I needed to know. "Sarah, what do you want?" I smoke. She was losing her grip. "Me? You'll see." Sarah walked into the cafe like a ghost of herself. Dark circles under her eyes, her expensive clothes wrinkled like she hadn't had the energy to care. "Good." I sipped my coffee, watching as she slid into the chair across from me. She didn't speak first. That alone told me she was scared. I leaned forward. "You're in trouble." Her jaw clenched. "No thanks to me. Or because you stole from me and got caught." She didn't answer. I let the silence stretch, watching as she fidgeted. "Good." Let her squirm. Finally, she exhaled sharply. "What do you want?" I tilted my head. "I came to offer you a choice." Her lips pressed together. I pulled a folder from my bag and slid it across the table. Option 1, you sell the house. Now you use what little money you can get from it to start over. Maybe leave town, disappear for a while. Her fingers hovered over the folder. She didn't open it. I continued. Option 2, you stay, you fight, and you lose everything. Sarah swallowed hard. The bank hasn't officially foreclosed yet. I smiled. No, but it will. She knew I was right. I leaned back, swirling my coffee cup. I know about Lucas. Her breath hitched. I let that sink in. I know he's already planning to leave you, I said, tilting my head. Tell me, Sarah, how much money did he borrow from you? She flinched. I already knew the answer because while Sarah had been too wrapped up in playing house, Lucas had been quietly draining their accounts, moving money, transferring assets, preparing to disappear the second things got messy. Sarah's voice came out weak. You're lying. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Her hand shook as she read the bank statements. The transfers, the receipts. Lucas had been bleeding her dry for months, and now he was gone. Her eyes lifted to mine, wild with betrayal. I shrugged. Looks like you were just another credit card to max out. She broke. Right there in the middle of the cafe. She covered her face, shoulders shaking. The weight of it all finally crashing down for the first time. She wasn't smiling, mocking, or playing the victim. She was just lost. I should have felt sorry for her, but I didn't. She had done this to herself. I picked up my phone and slid it back into my pocket. I suggest you take option 1. She looked up, tears streaking her makeup. And then she did something that nearly made me laugh. She reached for my hand. "Mirror, please." I let my gaze drop to her fingers, then back to her face. Slowly, I pulled my hand away. I had nothing left for her. I grabbed my bag, tossed a few bills on the table, and stood up. She stayed frozen in her chair, eyes hollow, world crumbling around her. I leaned down just close enough for her to hear. "This is the last time we will ever speak." And then I walked out the door with Sarah. Out of the way. I turned my focus to the real masterminds, my parents. They had co-signed the mortgage. They had helped Sarah forge the paperwork, and now they were about to feel the consequences. I sent them a letter. Official, cold, legal. A notice of fraudulent activity detailing their role in the mortgage scheme, their liability in the foreclosure, and the pending investigation against them. My father called me within an hour. "Dad? Mira, what the hell is this?" "It's exactly what it looks like." Silence, then rage. "You can't do this to your family." I smiled. "Watch me." The thing about my parents, they never thought I would fight back. They thought I would swallow the betrayal just like I always had. But this time I wasn't their scapegoat. I was their executioner. 1 week later, the bank seized Sarah's house. My parents' accounts were flagged for fraud. Sarah disappeared. Ran off to God knows where with nothing to her name. My father tried to lawyer up, but he was too late because Evelyn Holt didn't just file the fraud charges. She exposed everything. The bad loans, the tax fraud, the hidden debts, it all came out. And suddenly, the Langley name, so pristine, so untouchable, was nothing but a joke. A year ago, I would have felt guilty. But standing on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping wine that I bought with my own money, I felt something else entirely: relief. They had spent their whole lives stealing from me, and now they had nothing left to take. I set my glass down, watching the city lights below. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Officially closed. They're finished." I exhaled, slow and steady. Finally it was over. I typed back 2 words. "Good riddance." Then I turned off my phone and walked inside, never looking back. I didn't check my phone for the next few days. I didn't need to. By now, the damage was irreversible. Sarah's house was officially gone. Her credit was destroyed beyond repair. My parents were financially wrecked, their accounts frozen, their reputation in tatters. There was nothing left for them to manipulate, nothing left for them to steal. And me? For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't cleaning up their messes or sacrificing myself to keep the family afloat. I was free. The realization settled over me slowly, like the first deep inhale after holding your breath for too long. I had spent my entire life carrying them, and now they were the ones drowning, and I wasn't reaching out a hand. I poured myself a glass of wine, stepping onto the balcony of my new apartment. Not some cramped studio, not a place I settled for, but something I chose, something I built for myself. The city sprawled out in front of me, the skyline glowing in the crisp night air. This was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could use me again. I leaned against the railing, letting my mind drift. The last time I saw Sarah, she had nothing left. She had taken everything from me, convinced that I would forgive, forget, and fold under pressure like I always had. But I hadn't. And now she knew what it felt like to lose everything. A week passed before I got the first message. "Sarah, I know you hate me, but I need help." I read it once, then again. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't mocking me. She wasn't acting like she had one. She was begging. I clicked on the next message. "Sarah, Lucas took everything. I don't have anywhere to go. I just need a little money to get back on my feet. Please." I exhaled slowly, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. How many times had I picked her up when she crashed? How many times had I sacrificed my own future to clean up her mistakes? I could have helped her. I could have given her one last chance. But she didn't deserve one. She had spent years making sure I had nothing, making sure I was the one suffering while she thrived. She knew exactly what she was doing when she stole my credit, when she dragged my name through the mud to build her perfect little fantasy. Now she was drowning and I wasn't her lifeline anymore. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I did the only thing that felt right. I deleted it. No response. No last words. Just silence. The same silence she gave me when she ripped my future out from under me. I blocked her number. And just like that, Sarah Langley ceased to exist in my world. My parents tried next. First, it was my mother. Mom, Mira, I know things have been tense, but we're still family. Family. That word had been poison for me for so long. It had meant obligation, debt, sacrifice. It had meant pain. I had spent my whole life chasing their approval, trying to prove I was worth something beyond just being their safety net. But now, I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them. And that was something they could never take from me. I heard through the grapevine that my parents had moved into a tiny rental, a far cry from the house they had tried to steal from me. They lost everything trying to cover up Sarah's mess. No more lavish brunches. No more false superiority. No more pretending they were untouchable. They had gambled on using me one last time and they lost. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just moved on because I had wasted enough years letting them control my life. I wasn't wasting another damn second. A year passed then too. And in that time I became someone else entirely. I bought my own house the right way. No fraud, no stolen credit. Just hard work and persistence. I built a business. Something that belonged to me and only me. I traveled. I met people who saw me as a mirror. Not just the responsible one. Not just the backup plan. Not just the fixer. And I never looked back. One evening as I was closing up my restaurant, I got a text from Evelyn. Evelyn, thought you'd like to know. Sarah just filed for bankruptcy. It's official. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then slowly I smiled. Not because I care. Not because I needed revenge anymore, but because it was confirmation that I was never going to hear from her again. I typed back 2 words, good riddance. Then I slipped my phone into my pocket, stepped outside, and took a deep breath of the night air. No more guilt, no more burdens. No more them. I was free. And that was the greatest revenge of all. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that boundaries are everything. For too long, I believed that family loyalty meant sacrificing my own well-being to keep others happy. I thought that being the responsible one meant absorbing every consequence, every bad decision, every selfish act from the people I loved. But the truth is, loyalty without respect is just exploitation. It took losing everything to realize that some people will never stop taking unless you make them. They will push and push, assuming that your kindness is a resource without limits, that your forgiveness is guaranteed, that you will always clean up the messes they make. But at some point you have to say enough. You have to choose yourself in life. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. It's not selfish to protect yourself from those who use you. It's not unkind to walk away from toxic relationships, even if those relationships are family. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you won't put you in a position where you have to choose between them and your own survival. So if you're stuck in a cycle of being taken for granted, of always being the one who gives, take a step back. Ask yourself, if I disappeared tomorrow, would they miss me or just the things I do for them? And if the answer is the latter, it's time to walk away.